Yosemite National Park, one of the world's preeminent scenic wonders, is located in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. The park embraces nearly 1,200 square miles of mountains and valleys, rivers and waterfalls, and groves of giant sequoias. Yosemite Valley is the heart of the park and the focus of visitor activity. This is the location of some of America's most famous scenic marvels. For many visitors, spring is the most exciting season of the year in which to see Yosemite. And few would deny that in the spring, nature seems to celebrate the valley's release from the icy grip of winter. Both inside and outside the park, spring can blanket the lower slopes of the Sierra with dazzling displays of wildflowers. Huge areas of the landscape are turned bright orange by millions of California poppies, the state flower. There are gorgeous displays of lupin as well. Still other wildflowers contribute more delicate colors to the springtime spectacle. On the floor of Yosemite Valley, dogwood trees have burst into bloom. Their large, showy white blossoms are proof that spring has indeed come to the lower elevations of the park. Some of the mule deer celebrate the new season in ways that are entirely their own. Spring is also the season in which Yosemite's spectacular waterfalls are at their absolute best. However, the springtime events that bring about this glorious flood of water occur in the mountains of the park's high country, thousands of feet above the valley floor. The warming temperatures of the new season start their work on the frozen snowscape. Countless streams are born in the melting snowbanks of the High Sierra. Small streams merge into larger ones, always surging towards a lower level. Those streams that reach the upper edges of the valley walls have by now become a springtime torrent. The waters burst over the lip of the precipice in some of the most splendid waterfalls on Earth. This is Bridal Veil Fall, Ribbon Fall, Sentinel Falls, and grandest of all, Yosemite Falls. When the flow is at its peak, Yosemite fills the valley with the roar of falling water. Yosemite Falls is actually 3 falls in one. The magnificent upper fall plunges 1,430 feet. The middle fall is a cascade, hidden from most viewpoints by rocks and trees. The lower fall drops 320 feet, more than twice the height of Niagara. Yosemite Falls has a total height of 2,425 feet, one of the highest waterfalls in the world. An easy foot trail, 300 yards or less in length, leads to a bridge near the base of Lower Yosemite Fall. The most graceful writing about the wonders of Yosemite is found in the sensitive words of John Muir, the great naturalist and conservationist. More than any other person, he seems to have had a special vision of this place. He could see into its heart. Yosemite Falls, he wrote, is revealed in all its glory from base to summit, half a mile in height, and seeming to spring out into the valley's sunshine direct from the sky. For all visitors entering Yosemite Valley, Bridal Veil is the first of the principal falls to come into view. It provides a spectacular introduction to the park as a wonderland of waterfalls. Bridal Veil is a major fall. It drops 620 feet in a broad, shimmering sheet of water. The rainbows of the Veil, or rather the spray and foam bows, wrote John Muir, are superb because the waters are dashed among angular blocks of granite at the foot, producing abundance of spray of the best quality for iris effects. But waterfalls are only part of the magic of Yosemite Valley. Few places on Earth present so great a concentration of natural wonders in such a relatively small area. High granite cliffs wall in the valley on all sides. Cathedral rocks stretch straight up from the flat valley floor. The peaks named the Three Brothers point sharply toward the sky. The flat face of Half Dome, symbol of the park, is a sheer cliff 2,000 feet high. Spectacular El Capitan is said to be the largest single piece of granite on the surface of the Earth. Its summit towers 3,600 feet above its base. There are always a courageous few who choose to leave the floor of the valley by a vertical route. Rock climbing is popular not only on El Capitan, but at many sites on the valley walls. Some of America's most challenging climbs are found here. On a much more serene note, the placid surface of Mirror Lake reflects the majestic granite walls. There's water in the lake only in spring and early summer. The surface is usually smoothest first thing in the morning, which is also a likely time to see some of the park's varied wildlife. Black bears are not commonly seen in Yosemite Valley now. However, perhaps 300 or more roam other parts of the park. Black bears may weigh over 300 pounds and are not only black, but more often brown or even cinnamon in color. The acorn woodpecker is named for its food. It collects acorns and stores them in carefully pecked out holes in a tree trunk, one nut for each hole. There are several species of woodpeckers in Yosemite. This vigorous fellow is the pileated woodpecker. He's an unusually large bird, reaching 15 inches in length. Great horned owls range throughout most of North and South America, but they're seldom seen because they're generally nocturnal animals. Two of the park's most splendid waterfalls aren't visible from the valley floor. They're reached by a trail that's very steep in places. The lower of the two is Vernal Fall, with a drop of 317 feet. This is a handsome waterfall which, at peak volume, produces huge billowing clouds of mist. Muir poetically described Vernal as a staid, orderly, graceful, easygoing fall, proper and exact in every movement and gesture. An overlook at the brink provides a dramatic, close-up view of torrents of water rushing past. The trail continues on, climbing higher yet above Vernal. Soon the second fall, Nevada, comes into view. This brilliant white fall is 594 feet from brink to base, nearly twice the height of Vernal. At its fullest, Nevada Fall has a furious, almost frenzied look. It plunges over the brink of the precipice, wrote Muir, as if glad to escape into the open air. Both Nevada and Vernal Falls are located on the Merced River. This stream, so turbulent at the falls, has placid stretches too, as it winds its way through Yosemite Valley. Ultimately, the water of all the falls in the valley drains into the Merced River. The catalog of natural wonders in Yosemite National Park also includes 3 groves of giant sequoias. The largest is the Mariposa Grove, located just inside the park's south entrance. The giant sequoias are the largest living things on Earth, and only the bristlecone pine trees are older. Sequoias may live to an age of 3,000 years and can weigh more than 2 million pounds. Sequoias grow in only 75 scattered groves on the western slope of the Sierra. They're relatives of the redwoods, which grow in the coastal mountains of Northern California. The oldest trees here may be as much as 30 feet in diameter at the base and well over 200 feet in height. For such gigantic trees, sequoias have surprisingly shallow root systems. The major roots spread over a wide area, but rarely go deeper than about 6 feet. This ambitious little fellow is a chicory, a species of squirrel. Here he's feeding on the seeds of a pine cone. He also eats the fleshy cones of the sequoias. Sequoia seeds are too tiny for food. By discarding them, the chicory helps the trees to spread and multiply. These fluted cinnamon-brown trunks seem to rise like stately columns, reaching upward to support the forest's roof. In the seemingly timeless sequoia groves, the spring season is marked by the appearance of clumps of snow plants. Their scarlet stalks last only a short time. Many of the big trees show scars of fire. Some have large holes burned completely through them, yet they're still thriving. John Muir called the giant sequoias the king of all the conifers in the world, the noblest of the noble race. In a hectic world where everything seems transient, the big trees lend a feeling of peace, a hint of eternity. The spring season continues in Yosemite Valley. But we're high in the Sierra here, and the weather can change unexpectedly. Snow may fall in the valley even in late spring. The snowfall had begun even earlier in the Mariposa Grove, 2,000 to 3,000 feet higher in elevation than the valley floor. Yosemite Valley was born in ice and snow. Long before the ice began its work, about 50 million years ago, there were rolling wooded hills here. The ancestral Merced River meandered leisurely through a broad valley. 10 million years ago, the area was uplifted and tilted to the west. The tilt speeded up the Merced and it cut deeper into its valley. The uplift continued. By 3 million years ago, the valley had become a canyon as much as 3,000 feet deep, dug by the turbulent Merced River. Its tributaries were smaller streams and their canyons far shallower. Between 1 million and 250,000 years ago, during an era of widespread glaciation, at least one gigantic ice sheet completely filled Yosemite Valley, gouging it into a U-shaped trough with steep walls. The crest of Half Dome remained above the glacier, but the ice sheared off its face into the vertical cliff we see today. 30,000 years ago, a far smaller glacier advanced into the valley, terminating near Bridal Veil Fall. By 10,000 years ago, the last glacier had melted, leaving a natural dam of rock and debris at its terminus. This created a shallow lake in Yosemite Valley. The lake eventually filled with silt, forming the present flat valley floor. Wherever the glacier produced vertical walls, the tributary canyons became hanging valleys. Their streams plunged over the cliffs in sheer drops, forming the many famous falls we see today. The royal arches, too, are evidence of glaciation. Concentric cracks in the granite allowed the ice to undercut the valley walls. It was John Muir who first propounded the theory that glaciation was the major creative force in the shaping of Yosemite Valley. Later studies have modified certain parts of his original thesis, but Muir, in hiking through his beloved Sierra wilderness, understood the evidence that nature presented to his perceptive eye. Muir saw beauty and significance in even the tiniest creatures and events and objects he encountered in the Sierra. He saw with an artist's eye, and he wrote with a poet's hand. In describing Yosemite, he said, "Down through the middle of the valley flows the crystal Merced, river of mercy, peacefully quiet, reflecting lilies and trees and the onlooking rocks, things frail and fleeting, meeting here and blending in countless forms, as if into this one mountain mansion, nature had gathered her choicest treasures." In a landmark action in 1864, Yosemite Valley and the Mariposa Grove were granted to the state of California as a public trust. However, Muir became aware that commercial interests could still intrude upon and damage the natural beauties of Yosemite. In 1881, a tunnel was cut through the Wawona tree in Mariposa Grove so that vehicles could be driven through it. Thanks in good part to the eloquent writings of John Muir, Yosemite was made a national park in 1890. 2 years later, Muir and others organized the Sierra Club, a group dedicated to conservation and to the protection of America's natural wonders. In 1903, President Theodore Roosevelt accompanied Muir on a camping trip in Yosemite and heard the older man's urgent pleas for the preservation of the environment. During his administration, Roosevelt established 50 game preserves and 16 national monuments. He doubled the number of our national parks. Muir was particularly charmed by what he called the second Yosemite, the Hetch Hetchy Valley. located 25 or so miles north of Yosemite Valley within the boundaries of the park. This place, too, contained splendid waterfalls and grand granite walls. The Tuolumne River flowed through its lush and flowered floor. A dam was proposed at Hetch Hetchy, inside the park, to provide drinking water for San Francisco. "Dam Hetch Hetchy," cried Muir, "as well dam for water tanks the people's cathedrals and churches." But the dam was built, and it nearly broke Muir's heart. While there is still lovely scenery at Hetch Hetchy, falls still splash down the granite cliffs and moss covers the tumbled boulders, Hetch Hetchy Valley is gone. Partly as a result of this enormous loss to the country, the National Park Service was organized in 1916 to conserve and protect America's glorious natural and historical heritage. Today, in Yosemite Valley, many lucky visitors, especially those who are out early, can catch a glimpse of what it might have been like when Muir first fell in love with it. A place of tranquil beauty. A place to savor the wonders in silence and solitude. A place where nature still seems untouched. As the warmth of late spring continues, the snowpack in the mountains shrinks. Yosemite and the other falls gradually grow thinner as the runoff lessens. Another sure sign that spring is yielding to summer here is the opening of the road to Glacier Point. This is a high overlook 30 miles by car from the valley and right at the edge of one sheer granite wall. Up here, we're 3,200 feet above the valley floor. The early morning sun and haze have turned Half Dome into a ghostly silhouette. The air is still, but as the sun moves higher, the breeze will pick up and the haze will vanish. Overlooks at Glacier Point provide spectacular views into Yosemite Valley. Its floor is an almost dizzying distance below us. We can look down on Yosemite Falls. Weather conditions on this particular afternoon have created a dramatic atmospheric effect on the face of Half Dome. Farther to the east, the peaks of the High Sierra are on display along the horizon. The U-shape of Upper Yosemite Valley, as gouged out by the glaciers in front of Half Dome, can clearly be seen from this vantage point. By late afternoon, the clouds have cleared away and Half Dome stands out boldly against the sky. Both Vernal and Nevada Falls, now much diminished as the season advances, are in sight from Glacier Point. Yosemite Valley fills with shadows as the end of daylight approaches. The face of Half Dome, viewed head-on in flat lighting, looks unclimbable. But like El Capitan, it offers several challenging routes for climbers.
As it rises,
the evening ranger talks at Glacier Point are always popular. Up here, it seems as if the entire park were spread out in the best possible way for visitors to understand and appreciate its features. We are now in the mountains, wrote Muir, and they are in us. Kindling enthusiasm, making every nerve quiver, filling every pore and cell. The summer season is in full swing on the valley floor. Even so, there are opportunities to find a quiet road for walking or bicycling. And for those who like to explore by themselves, there are always special scenes and special experiences. Mule deer are numerous throughout much of the park. They're named for their large ears, which are similar to a mule's. A full-grown adult buck may weigh as much as 200 pounds. With the arrival of the drier months of summer, the change in the volume and power of the waterfalls in the valley is very evident. Usually there's some water in Yosemite Falls until about mid-August. Rain in the high country can briefly increase the flow. Upper and Lower Yosemite Falls offer by far the most dramatic illustration of the seasonal change. After the splendid spectacle of its full springtime flow, the upper fall may disappear completely, becoming no more than damp streaks on the face of the cliff. In spring, Lower Yosemite Fall is a solid flood of water. The reduced flow of summer turns it into two separate falls. Bridal Veil, unlike Yosemite Falls, always has water. The thinner stream of summer, once the breeze catches it, produces the lacy, delicate veil for which the fall was named. One of the great privileges of Yosemite's summer season is the opening of the high country. The Tioga Road is usually clear of snow by early June, allowing access to the park over the Sierra from the east. Yosemite's high country is a revelation to visitors who see the valley first. And they're astonished to learn that the valley constitutes less than 1% of the park's total area. Up here, far above the valley, one gets a wholly different perspective of the High Sierra. Here, broad vistas open up, and rugged, snow-swept peaks point sharply into the clean blue sky. The road connecting Tioga Pass with Yosemite Valley offers spectacular views throughout its length. But this place should be experienced on foot, not framed by the windows of a car. This is where pure mountain streams come tumbling down from the surrounding snowfields. Summer wildflowers brighten the landscape on all sides, and crystal lakes reflect majestic granite peaks and handsome stands of conifers. Tuolumne Meadows, at an elevation of 8,600 feet, is one of the park's most appealing areas. John Muir called it the most delightful summer pleasure park in all the High Sierra. There's a feeling of space and distance here that's wholly different from the concentration of features in the valley. This open country invites walking and exploration. Here and throughout the park, there's certain specific evidence of glaciation. These scattered boulders are called glacial erratics, rocks that were caught up in a slowly moving ice sheet and then dropped here when the ice melted. There are also patches of glacial polish, where granite ledges were smoothed to a shiny finish by the ice and the abrasive gravel it carried. The meadows are crossed by the Tuolumne River, which originates in the melting snow and ice of the mountains to the east. This is the river that, 35 miles or so downstream from this point, was dammed to create the reservoir at Hetch Hetchy. Soda Springs, reached by an easy trail, is one of the more curious features of the Tuolumne Meadows area. Bitter, naturally carbonated water bubbles up out of the ground here from a cluster of small springs. The ruined log structure may be as much as 100 years old. It's thought to have been built to protect some of the springs. The trail to Gaylor Lakes near Tioga Pass offers a fine opportunity to sample the Yosemite high country. Hikers can make their adventures as long or as short as they wish. There are great rewards in leaving the busier areas of the park behind and getting away from it all. The popular trail to May Lake takes hikers only about a mile from a parking area, yet it makes an excellent one-day introduction to the high country experience. There are more than 800 miles of hiking trails in Yosemite. You can plan anything from a fairly easy walk to a rugged backpacking trip extending over many days. Marmots are seen throughout the high country. They're about the size of a house cat and feed on green plants. They hibernate during the winter. May Lake is located in a glacier-sculptured bowl where granite slopes and cliffs rise almost from the water's edge. At one end is the May Lake High Sierra Camp, one of a chain of 5 rustic tent camps in the park's high country. All are reached only on foot. There are no roads and no vehicles. The people who come here are driven by an urge to feel the freedom of independent action, to get a closer view of the wonderful world we live in. No matter how large or small the challenge, they can say, "I set out to do this on my own, and I did it." Fall somehow seems to be more temporary than any other season in Yosemite Valley. The flowers of spring and summer pass away all too quickly, but the dramatic foliage of autumn lasts an even shorter time. The valley is no longer a place of masses of plunging water. Bridal Veil is at its thinnest volume. Yosemite Falls may have been dry at times, although colorful foliage can still frame an end-of-season ghost of its springtime splendor. And many of the rapids of the Merced are now sun-dried rocks in a placid stream. The foliage itself has become the valley's prime attraction, and fall is one of the most popular times of year with visitors. Coyotes are common in Yosemite, both in the high country and in the valley. Typically, the animal's den is a wide-mouthed tunnel in the ground, which may be 20 feet or more in length. Their usual food is rodents and other small animals. If spring is a sweet season in Yosemite, fall is a gentle time of year. The roar of rushing water is barely heard, and smaller, perhaps less dramatic things come to one's attention. To John Muir, autumn in the valley meant mellow sunshine overhead, cool shadows beneath, light filtered and strained and passing through the ripe leaves like that which passes through colored windows. Even the rocks, he wrote, seemed strangely soft and mellow, as if they too had ripened. But little time is left to enjoy the glories of the fall foliage. The sun is lower. It gives less warmth now, and the seasons are about to change once more. As one kind of beauty passes, another takes its place. Winter is unique. Virtually everything in the park undergoes a major change when temperatures drop and snow starts to fall. Roads to the high country and Glacier Point are closed, and the valley is covered with white. For those who know it only in spring or summer, a wintertime visit to the park can be a revelation. The silent snowflakes cling to each other on the trees, forming an elegant white filigree among the branches, ornamenting them with a fragile lace. In winter, Yosemite is a different world. Bridal Veil and the other falls that flow during the winter are flanked by masses of ice on the surrounding cliffs. Seen like this, the waterfalls are, in a way, more complex and even more wonderful natural phenomena than in their springtime appearance. The silence that falling snow seems to bring is particularly noticeable here. The crowds of the summer season are long gone, and winter gives more of an opportunity for a feeling of personal adventure in the valley. For the relatively few animals like the coyote that neither hibernate nor move down to lower elevations over the winter, snow makes the search for food an unending challenge. But for people, particularly for ski people, a fresh snowfall means another delightful time of year to come to Yosemite. Snowplows keep the Glacier Point Road open only as far as Badger Pass, about 20 miles from the valley and more than 3,000 feet higher. For cross-country skiers and snowshoe enthusiasts, there are over 50 miles of trails in the Badger Pass area. The beauty of Yosemite persists through all seasons. John Muir called the valley the grandest of all the special temples of nature I was ever permitted to enter. No single time of year is more lovely than another. But spring is perhaps the most optimistic season. Everything seems new and fresh, as if the whole world has been reborn.